Chat, are we gonna face a problem where Maya is gonna pull a version of Banshee that isn't Banshee? Is Maya gonna pull Banshee from a timeline where he didn't get his memory erased 44 times and went from Clovis to Banshee? These are colored exactly like Banshee's exoframe, which Banshee is Clovis. All right. So you kind of heard my assumption right. Now, some of you may be wondering, Chris, that stream was from forever ago. Why are you just uploading this now? Well, I was debating doing either this or my own video on Estrella. But as I've seen, Evan, by everybody else is doing the Estrella, if you kind of wanted my take of what might happen with Estrella, because I definitely did see this coming, where Estrella was going to be dead set on connecting with her Warmind brother and sister until finding out that Rasputin was no longer here, way back in my Vespers host video. So I was tempted to kind of recap that, but since everyone else has taken the reign on that, I wanted to actually point out something that we should probably be a bit more concerned with and is a lot closer to home. I don't think Estrella is going rogue. I don't think anything negative is going to come from Estrella, because Estrella hates Clovis. She's made it very clear that she's very upset with Clovis, especially the fact that he did not tell her that Soteria existed, and the fact that Rasputin existed, so she had no idea that she had siblings. But that brings us to, once again, the big bad man himself, Clovis Bray. And my little additive that I'd like to put in everyone's heads while we're trudging through Ash and Iron and Festival of the Lost, we might have a threat much closer to home than you think. And as you've seen from the introduction clip that I included, I noticed it when we were in the heliostat mission immediately. And the warsats that we were seeing in there, number one, mirror Banshee's exoframe through and through. But for those of you who don't know, and we'll do a very brief recap for either new players or people not as deep into the lore and understanding as some of us are. But we know that Banshee is what's left of Clovis. So here's my very brief theory, is what I'll put, because there's definitely not a lot that they've added to everything, but I'll explain why I think that this could be the next beat in the story and potentially the inside threat. So first and foremost, let's get the elephant out of the room. Yes, I understand that this could be, something that is not necessarily true, but I feel like it's too coincidental to not talk about and not bring up with this theory as well, and that is the recasting of Banshee's voice. Obviously, we had Banshee's voice before. It was very, subtle, very kind of forgetful and very deep. And then the recasting of Banshee's voice kind of gives me more of an inkling of, why are we recasting it now? There had to have been some purpose, right? There couldn't have been just an expiration of contract for someone, because then if there's an expiration of contract, you still have permission to use that person's voice. You just don't pay him anymore, unless you somehow worked it into the contract that, hey, we're going to use your voice for this character for this. Stop. But I feel like the recasting is too coincidental right before the heliostat mission came out. And came along with the patch, which means that actor was brought in to record previous voice lines, but then also put in brand new ones that realistically we have potentially just not heard yet. So that is the biggest thing, number one. Number two, obviously what I showed in the intro clip there, the warsats look exactly like Banshee's exoframe, and his helmet piece is what I'll say. I don't really want to say his headpiece. It seems kind of weird, but I mean his noggin is definitely the exact same. This little satellite doohickeys, I don't know, antenna is the best way to to put it. are in the exact same position as the Warsats. The only difference is that, Banshee's little markings on the front of his face are orange, whereas, we have the white plating on the Warsats. But the first time I saw them, I was immediately just like, why does that remind me so much of Banshee? And it clicked in my head. We're dealing with Maya going into timelines, right? And this is where a lot of the recap is going to. If any of you are watching and you're new players, number one, subscribing to the channel will definitely help you out. I go over a lot of lore stuff, and most of the time, if I'm talking about a theory I have, I give a huge recap, like an enormous recap. Yes, personally, I don't like asking for it, but the channel is growing. We're almost to 10,000 subs, and I have been trying to make content creation my career for the last like 14 years. So I would greatly appreciate it if you guys sub to the channel. I will get tired of asking for it. I really don't like asking for it, but it's how the game works, so we've got to play that. But for new players, basically to get you caught up on what's going on, the reason that Maya, the conductor, is so threatening in terms of her work is that she is manipulating the Vex time pools and the Vex simulations in order to pull things from other timelines where to then throw at us to fight. So in our timeline, we may have defeated the Red Legion, but now based on what we're seeing, it looks like she is pulling Red Legion out of another time stream in a completely different timeline where maybe we didn't win. Or maybe, they're still around and we didn't completely win after the Red War, and the Red War is still continuing, and she's ripping them out of that timeline and throwing them at us to try and distract us while she goes and finds Golden Age tech to create her own Golden Age. Now, the reason that this is terrifying is because the first thing she did was she was looking for her wife, Chioma Essie, because in this timeline, Chioma has died. She has passed on. She realistically died of grief back on Neomuna whenever Maya initially lost her mind and was doing some pretty horrible experiments. I have some other videos on that on the channel as well. I would specifically go and look at the ones where we were finding out that it was Maya Sundaresh, and that we eventually made a video about nailing it and celebrating it so well. But with that, she was not able to find her wife, and she was doing some horrible things by pulling copies of her wife from other timelines, and then if they didn't answer questions correctly, she wiped them from existence. So now those timelines are without Maya for something, or not Maya, excuse me, without Chioma, without anything of their own volition. It is just because she has the Echo of Command, which is a paracausal item that is the mantle around her neck and the mantle you see around our enemies that we're fighting throughout the heliostat mission and, activities. Now, why is this so important? The Vex hate that she's doing it. The Vex are using different time streams to insert themselves into timelines to learn about the paracausal and eventually learn how they can replicate it to stop people like the Guardian, ourselves, from manipulating time and changing time on a whim based on, human volition and human spirit. But Maya is not doing that. Maya is not doing what we do with a paracausality. She has been given a piece of paracausal equipment and is using it. They have warned her if she returns to the VexNet at any point, she will be purged, aka deleted from all existence, period, in the story. But what's even worse about this is what I see could happen here with Banshee. Banshee-44, for those who don't know, and of course newer players coming into everything, Banshee in the Tower, who's a very forgetful exo, the number after his name, and as is with all exo frames and exo guardians, the number after their name that they have designated is how many times they have gone through an exo mind reset. Basically what it is a system restore for a computer where you can set it back to a specific time whenever there wasn't a problem. Now, some of you may ask, why would an exo frame need to be reset? The quickest rundown I can give you without going into the full explanation is that exoframes are a mixture of human blood and darkness energy. We found out in Clovis's crypt, the Deep Stone Crypt, which is a raid, that, what was going on was that the Ishtar Collective and Clovis were working on a project to conserve human life through machines. Now, in order to do that, we mixed human blood with a darkness energy found in clarity control, which we ended up finding out was a dissenter statue from the witnesses, dissenters from Final Shape, that Clovis had found and kept on his ship. So basically, there is a thing called DER, which is dissociative exomind rejection. So DER is a disease because in the exoframes, the brain of the human was still transferred. So in every exomind's helmet and head is really a brain to still give a cage to the brain itself. However, DER occurs whenever exoframes essentially go through this, what I call existential dread, where their brain begins to understand that it is no longer within a flesh body. It is within a machine, and it starts to go into this spiral of psychosis and existential dread. And there are cases of exominds just breaking down and screaming, trying to rip them, like they'll rip the exoframe apart, trying to escape, like the brain is trying to treat this body more like a cage rather than a body. And so that is the primary reason that resets are performed, is to pretty much reset the timer on dissociative exomind rejection, or DER. Now, the reason Banshee has 44 next to his name is because he has been reset 44 times. But to keep it short and simple, Banshee-44 is Clovis Bray. So Clovis, of course, being the madman that he was, put himself into an exoframe a long, long ago. And his granddaughter, Anna Bray, the only one not put into an exoframe, since Elsie Bray, the other granddaughter, was put into an exoframe. Anna was tasked with, pretty much pushing him through and assisting with experiments. And then, of course, she was there during resets. Along the reset timeline, he, started to lose his memory, but before the 44th, so on the 43rd, they were pretty much guaranteed to know that he will not be the same once he comes. Have no memory. This is the point where the resets are detrimental to your memory, so you don't even get reset as a system restore point. It's almost like a complete reset. You have no idea who you are. And they choose to call him Banshee because of the other exominds and the other exoframes that have realistically come to the conclusion of calling him Banshee because of his wails that he had throughout the laboratory. And so when he awakes, he becomes Banshee-44, no longer Clovis, and now he has the memory less of a goldfish, it seems, as you've seen in the tower when he can't even know that you've been standing there for the past 5 minutes, but he asks if you've just got there. Now, that is the side effect of being reset that many times, but when we're facing an enemy like Maya Sundaresh and the Conductor, who can reach into timelines seemingly at will and reach into these time streams at a moment that she so chooses, the threat and the hints that we're getting of that threat are becoming very... There is a very, very serious threat that Maya could reach into a time stream before Banshee becomes Banshee, before Clovis goes through those final resets, or she could even go as far back as pulling Clovis from a time stream in his prime of invention, in his prime of human conservation, and creating the strongholds, creating the Exodus ship program, that whenever he first came across clarity control, and she could essentially show Clovis everything that he's done before he's ever done it. And so then he could be doing something extremely dangerous and different, especially since we know after busting a warsat open, these warsats were filled from signals from a different time stream. So my worry here is that the last thing that I believe we've received from Clovis, from any timeline or even our own, was in Vesper's Host. And we received notice from Estrella whenever she was looking through records and all sorts of other stuff. Well, and even in Season of the Seraph, the code we got from the portal, the humongous orange arc energy portal that was bursting with radiation, said hello world, which scared me that even at that time that Clovis may have been in another timeline, because we know Clovis could also manipulate the time streams. Clovis, the whole reason the exotic No Time to Explain exists is because Clovis went forward in time whenever Elsie Bray died, and he found her body and found her rifle laying next to her. But he took the rifle and brought it back with him through time and gave it as a gift to Elsie Bray, which is why it has the ability to have that little extra buddy on it, which is the gun shooting from a different timeline, because it gained this power from being brought through the time streams backwards. Now, thinking of that, since we know that he knew he could do that, I speculated that maybe he went to another timeline to escape us, and now this Vesper's host is the culmination of whatever experiment that was failed that he was doing in Vesper Station that Estrella was supposed to keep in the station, but got released when we crashed the crypt and, ended up sending an asteroid through that Vesper Station. It's a culmination of that, and now Clovis is able to come through this as some sort of portal, and he's warning of his return. But now we have the opposite end, where if that is the case, Maya can now reach in and pull him through it. And so I can't imagine that it goes as lopsided as I believe, because time and time again, I have a very productive imagination whenever it comes to changes in the Destiny landscape in the universe, but they definitely don't come to fruition as much as I. But that is kind of where I believe things are going. I'm terrified that we're going to have a Clovis that looks exactly like Banshee, pulled from another timeline. And for us, Ikora or whoever else is in the fire team with us will be, baffled to be like, Banshee, what are you doing here? And all of a sudden, with the new voice actor, he's going to turn around and it's going to be Clovis Bray speaking to us. And we have an entirely new threat very close to home that we could be expecting. So with that, let me know how you guys feel. Obviously, I just included some festival in the background. I'm going to try and keep some Destiny content rolling. I can't promise anything, though, because I'm currently absolutely obsessed with Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. I definitely enjoyed the game, even though it's not like the original. But if you guys want to see content on Bloodlines, let me know. Obviously, if you want to see it in real time of me going through the story on the La Sombra playthrough that I'm doing, go ahead and visit the Twitch and give us a follow there as well. Outside of that, though, tell me how you feel about this theory in the comments. Do you feel kind of on the same page with it? Do you think there's something else that I could be missing? Let me know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.